The season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix was a race with some cheer for Mercedes. They had a car on the podium and they left with a 27-point advantage on Red Bull, who had both cars retire. However, there was little of that through the weekend of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, with it being abundantly clear where the defending champions are, closer to the midfield than the front. The gaps to the Red Bull and the Ferrari in qualifying and the race have been enormous. They are large enough to suggest that Mercedes are not overturning this deficit in short order, and that advantage they had to overcome Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship has nearly been wiped out already. Lewis Hamilton's comment after the race was that he was struggling to keep up with the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. Shows exactly where Mercedes are at the moment. If fifth remains the limit of his car for the next few rounds, the gap to the likes of Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen will likely grow and grow. Any thoughts on an 8th world title for Hamilton cannot currently be contemplated, even with 20 rounds remaining in the season. Despite being just 2 races into the season, there are already questions over whether Mercedes have failed to produce a car capable of challenging. With all due respect, it's unlikely here that Lewis Hamilton is the problem, so it would appear to be the fundamental issue is the quality of the machinery that Hamilton has at his disposal. As dramatic as it may sound, the Mercedes W13 is the worst car Mercedes have produced in nearly a decade. As good as Hamilton is, with 2 teams comfortably quicker than his own, the size of getting Mercedes back to winning ways is massive. It's not impossible, but neither is it likely to be soon. Jaws hit the floor at the Jeddah Corniche circuit on Saturday evening as Lewis Hamilton failed to make it out of Q1 for the first time since the 2017 Brazilian Grand Prix. But after finishing the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix down in P10, Hamilton declared that his Mercedes team had their work cut out to get back in the fight this year. Hamilton was pessimistic after qualifying, which saw him fail to make Q2 after being pushed out by the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll in Q1, as Hamilton declared his W13 undrivable, doubting his chances of being able to stage a recovery drive to the front, as we've been accustomed to seeing from the 7-time champ over the years. And unfortunately, that pessimism proved well-founded, as Hamilton could only progress from his P15 grid slot to P10. That climb aided by retirements from Valtteri Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo and Fernando Alonso, although Hamilton was also hurt by the timing of a pit lane closure caused by the incidents of the latter 2 drivers. Personally, I feel like I maximised everything, said Hamilton at the end of the evening. I don't know if we did as a team, but it is what it is. Move on. It was a difficult one. I saw Alonso slowing down. It was double yellow flag, so I didn't push to overtake him. Then Daniel was stuck in the pit lane, so I didn't know if I could go in to the pits with the car just sitting there. It was just not great. Anyway, it is what it is. Asked, meanwhile, what the learnings have been from this weekend, Hamilton replied, "The learnings are there that we are quite a bit off pace-wise, and we've got a lot of work to do." George Russell, at least, managed to put the team in the top 5 on race day, having beaten his illustrious teammate in qualifying by securing 6th on the grid. And Russell said that P5 was the most he could have hoped to achieve on Sunday night in Jeddah. P5 was the maximum today, he said. "We would have loved to have had more, but the car actually felt really nice to drive. We know what we are lacking, and that's downforce, but I think we got the car in a really nice window this race. I was pushing as hard as I could, and that was really cool. It was probably the most physical race I have experienced in Formula 1, which was cool to have the body pushed to the limits. That concentration throughout 50 laps on a street circuit like this, high speed, it was cool. But I want to be doing this fighting for victories, not P5 all by myself. You always want to take the positives from a difficult situation, but we're not here to settle for that," he added. "We can't walk away being pleased with that." Across the paddocks, Red Bull's team principal Christian Horner was understandably happy with a win. Red Bull looked on course for victory with Verstappen last weekend and a points finish for Sergio Perez, only to see both of its cars fail to finish with a fuel pump problem in the remaining few laps. The team looked to have the pace again, particularly on the straights in Saudi Arabia, and their performance without reliability problems will give the team confidence that they're not going to suffer from technical faults on a regular basis, going on the most recent evidence. What a great race. It was an exciting last few laps, and thankfully, we just had enough to bring it home, he said. Horner continued by praising the performance from Verstappen, who performed with a much more patient effort than he might have done in the past few seasons, when he was known for aggressive driving that more occasionally crossed over the line of what was deemed acceptable by his peers and race authorities. It was a very patient race from Max. He looked after the tyres for the end of the race there, and then after the last safety car, he really went for it. Ferrari have got a great car and great drivers. It was a really tough battle today, and that's what we're set for when it comes to the rest of the season. It's going to be, from what we've seen in the first few races, epic. But back to Mercedes, and their Chief Technical Officer James Allison says he feared worse for the pace deficit of the team's 2022 Formula One car, but he believes the problems could be solved as early as the next 2 or 3 races. Progress does appear to have been made though, as Mercedes were dogged by porpoising issues during pre-season practice and the first race in Bahrain. Neither Hamilton or Russell reported the same issues after Saudi Arabia, and Mercedes trackside engineering director Andrew Chauvelin admitted after the opening weekend that solving that issue was the initial priority. We were caught out by it quite badly, and the porpoising on our car, especially when we put our first race upgrade package on it in the last winter test, the amount of porpoising we saw has been quite extreme, he said. We started to get it under control, but at the moment we're getting it under control a little bit by having to throw away the basic performance of our car as a smaller problem in order to get the bigger problem, the uncontrollable bouncing, slightly under our control. In the coming weeks, and with massive pressure on us to make sure we deliver this quickly, we will find improvements that get on top of the bouncing while not throwing away the underlying performance of the car in order to do so. We can't afford to wait to deliver those solutions. We're hard at work back at the factory to find them, make them, get them to the car, and enjoy the benefits of them. Hopefully start to realise some of the inherent goodness that we have built into this car, which should put us back to where we want to be, at the front end of the grid. Allison defended his team's direction, saying some will argue that perhaps we've bitten off more than we can chew with it, but we're very good chewers. He estimates the team deficit to be something like 0.6 seconds gap that it was in Bahrain qualifying, smaller than he feared after pre-season testing, but says the team has solutions for all of the problems on the car. All of those solutions are within our compass to deliver, he explained. Yes, it's challenging, but after actually winter testing, I feared worse. And actually, I think the performance improvement we've managed to deliver from winter testing to the first race, while perhaps not visible to the fans and perhaps not reassuring to the fans, is reassuring in-house here at the team. What we have ahead of us, the way in which we're approaching the problems, the way in which we bring solutions also gives me comfort that we will get back to a competitive car quite swiftly, and we'll be able to pursue the objective we have of championships. We intend to put these problems right as quick as possible, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 races, but in any case, we will put it right and we'll get our car at the front competing to allow us to pursue our dream of championship success. And speaking after the last race in Saudi Arabia, Mercedes trackside engineer Andrew Chauvelin said that they had predicted it would be another difficult weekend. It's been a tough weekend, and we need to go back and regroup ahead of Melbourne. The circuit here has been more difficult for us than Bahrain, and we're under no illusions where we stand at the moment, but we need to remain focused and effective. We have an enormous challenge ahead of us, but after the last 8 years, the team has been able to get on top of every performance issue that we have faced. We've been able to do that because we have so many talented and dedicated people on the team, both in Brackley and Brixworth. We certainly have our work cut out over the next few weeks and months, but we are more determined than ever to get ourselves back fighting at the front. Mercedes now sit in second in the constructors' standings, just 1 point ahead of rivals Red Bull, but a full 40 behind Ferrari.